Level 1. The child who could never slow down. You don't know the word ADHD yet. All you know is that everyone keeps telling you to slow down. Sit still. Pay attention. Stop daydreaming. You were just listening. You hear these words so often, they start sounding like your name. You're 6 years old. It's your first week of school. Your teacher is reading a story to the class. Every other child seems completely focused. You try. You really do. For the first minute, you're listening. Then, you notice a bird outside the window. You wonder where it's flying. That reminds you of airplanes. Airplanes remind you of your favorite movie. The movie reminds you of popcorn. Now you're wondering what you'll eat after school. Suddenly, your teacher calls your name. What did I just say? Your heart drops. You don't know. You were trying to listen. You just left without moving. The whole class laughs. You laugh too, mostly because you're embarrassed. That afternoon, your teacher writes a note for your parents. Has trouble paying attention, easily distracted, needs to focus more. You don't understand why everyone thinks you're choosing this. Because if you could simply decide to pay attention, you would. At home, your parents sit beside you while you do homework. A worksheet that should take 20 minutes takes 2 hours. Not because you don't understand the questions, because every few minutes, your brain finds something else. The sound of the refrigerator, the pencil rolling across the table, a crack in the ceiling, a random question about dinosaurs, your own shoelaces. By the time you remember the homework, you've forgotten what question you were answering. Your parents sigh. You have so much potential, if only you would focus. Those words stay with you, because you're trying harder than anyone realizes. One Saturday, your mom sends you upstairs to clean your room. You walk into your bedroom, you pick up a shirt, then notice your favorite toy. You start playing. 5 minutes later, you remember you're supposed to clean. You pick up another shirt, then find an old comic book. You start reading. 20 minutes later, your mom walks in. The room somehow looks worse. She shakes her head. What have you been doing this whole time? You don't know how to answer, because somehow, you've been busy the entire time. You just weren't cleaning. Birthdays are exciting. Almost too exciting. Christmas morning feels like your brain is exploding with happiness. You rip open presents, start playing with one, then immediately abandon it to open another. Half the toys stay in their boxes for weeks. Not because you don't like them. Because something newer keeps grabbing your attention. Your bedroom becomes a museum of unfinished projects. Half-built Lego sets. Coloring books with only 3 pages completed. Science kits, model airplanes, drawing pads. You were genuinely excited about every single one. Until something else became exciting. Adults call you inconsistent. You call it confusing. One afternoon, your grandfather teaches you how to fish. Everyone sits quietly by the lake. Waiting. Watching the water. After 3 minutes, you're asking questions. After 5, you're throwing rocks. After 7, you're chasing butterflies. Your grandfather laughs. You've got enough energy for 10 people. You smile. At least someone isn't angry. School becomes harder every year. Not because the work gets more difficult, because expectations change. Teachers expect you to stay organized. Remember assignments. Bring the correct books. Turn in homework on time. Somehow, those things feel harder than the actual learning. You lose pencils constantly. You forget permission slips. You leave your lunchbox at school. You forget your backpack at home. People begin describing you with words you hate. Careless, messy, lazy, irresponsible. Each one feels unfair. Because if they could spend just one day inside your mind, they'd see something completely different. They'd see someone trying to chase 10 thoughts at once. Someone who forgets things not because they don't care, but because another thought arrived before the first one could finish. Then something strange happens. One day, your class starts learning about space. Within minutes, you're completely absorbed. Hours pass. You don't notice the bell. You don't hear your classmates talking. You memorize planet names, draw galaxies, ask question after question. Your teacher is surprised. I've never seen you focus like this. Neither have you. That's when you discover something confusing. You can focus. Sometimes, better than anyone else. Just not on the things people expect. You don't understand why. Neither does anyone around you. The comments continue. You're so smart. If only you'd apply yourself. Those words become the soundtrack of your childhood. You begin believing something must be wrong with you. Because no matter how hard you try, you can't seem to become the child everyone expects. You're exhausted from forgetting things, embarrassed by interrupting people, ashamed every time someone says, "Weren't you listening?" The truth is, you were. Until your mind quietly wandered away without asking your permission. You don't know it yet, but years from now, someone will finally explain why your brain has always felt different. And for the first time in your life, you'll stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "Why did nobody tell me sooner?" Level 2. The world starts calling you lazy. Middle school changes everything. When you were younger, people thought your behavior was cute. He's just energetic. She'll grow out of it. Now, they expect more. More responsibility, more organization, more self-control. The problem is, your brain never received the memo. On the first day of 7th grade, your teacher hands out planners. This is where you'll write every assignment. You nod confidently. This year will be different. By Friday, you've already lost the planner. Not because you didn't care. You honestly can't remember where you put it. Your backpack becomes a mystery. There are worksheets from 3 months ago. Broken pencils. Half-eaten snacks. Books you're supposed to return. Homework you finished, but forgot to hand in. Every morning feels like a scavenger hunt. You finally find your math assignment. You proudly place it in your bag. Then, when your teacher asks for it, it's gone. You search every pocket, every folder. Nothing. "I swear I did it." Your teacher sighs. I hear that every week. You receive another 0. Not because you didn't learn. Because your work never made it to the classroom. At home, you sit down to study for tomorrow's history test. You open the textbook. Read one sentence. Then notice your phone vibrating. You check one notification. 5 minutes become 20. 20 becomes an hour. Suddenly, you remember the history book. You rush back. Read another paragraph. Then you remember you forgot to feed the dog. On your way to the kitchen, you notice dirty dishes. You start washing them. Halfway through, you remember the history test again. By bedtime, you've been studying for 4 hours. You've actually studied, maybe 20 minutes. You crawl into bed, frustrated, wondering why something so simple feels impossible. The next day, your friend studies for 30 minutes during lunch. They score higher than you. You studied all evening. You can't explain it. Neither can anyone else. Teachers begin saying things that hurt more now. You're wasting your potential. You just need more discipline. Stop making excuses. Every sentence feels like proof that everyone believes you're choosing this. You begin believing it too. Maybe you really are lazy. Maybe everyone else is simply trying harder. One afternoon, you're assigned a science project due in 3 weeks. 3 weeks, plenty of time. You even tell yourself, "I'll start tomorrow." Tomorrow arrives. You think about starting, then something else comes up. The next day, same thing. Before you know it, it's the night before the deadline. Panic takes over. You suddenly become unstoppable. For 8 straight hours, you don't eat. You barely drink water. You don't check your phone. You build, write, research, create. Your parents walk past your room. They're amazed. "We've never seen you work this hard. Neither have you." It's as if someone flipped a switch inside your brain. The next morning, you present the project. The teacher loves it. You receive one of the highest grades in the class. Everyone congratulates you. They have no idea you didn't sleep. You begin living your life this way. Deadline after deadline. Crisis after crisis. Always telling yourself, "Next time I'll start earlier." Next time never comes. Then something even stranger begins happening. You discover there are moments when your brain locks onto something. Completely. One weekend, you decide to learn guitar. You sit down for what feels like 20 minutes. When you finally look at the clock, it's almost midnight. 8 hours disappeared. You forgot to eat, forgot your phone existed, forgot everything except the guitar. It feels incredible. Until Monday morning. Your English essay is still unfinished. You can't understand it. How can your brain focus for 8 straight hours and then struggle to read 2 pages of homework? No one around you understands either. One evening, your parents sit you down. "We know you're intelligent. But intelligence means nothing if you don't apply yourself." You stare at the floor. Because you've heard this speech before. Dozens of times. Maybe hundreds. Every version ends the same way. You just need to try harder. You quietly whisper, "I am trying." They believe you. But they don't fully understand. Neither do you. High school arrives. Everyone around you begins planning for the future. Colleges, careers, scholarships. Meanwhile, you're still forgetting your locker combination, still losing assignments, still showing up to class with the wrong notebook, still interrupting conversations without meaning to, still apologizing for being yourself. Then one afternoon, your biology teacher notices something. After class, she asks you to stay behind. You immediately assume you're in trouble. Instead, she smiles. "I've been watching you." Your stomach tightens. You ask brilliant questions. You notice details other students miss. But you also seem to be fighting your own brain. No teacher has ever said that before. Not, "You're lazy." Not, "You're careless." But, "You're fighting your own brain." Those words stay with you all week. Because deep down, that's exactly what it feels like. Like every single day, you're trying to sprint, while your own mind keeps pulling you in 10 different directions. You still don't know the reason. You still don't have a name for it. But for the first time, someone has made you wonder, what if the problem isn't your effort? What if your brain has simply been playing by different rules all along? Tomorrow, those rules will follow you into adulthood, where the stakes become much higher, and forgetting one small thing can change the course of your entire life. Level 3. The adult everyone thinks has it together. You always believed adulthood would fix you. As a kid, everyone said, "You'll grow out of it." As a teenager, they said, "College will make you more responsible." Then college came, then work, then bills, then relationships. And somehow, your brain never got the update everyone else was expecting. The first week at your new job feels exciting. A clean desk, a fresh notebook, a calendar with nothing written on it. You promise yourself, this is a fresh start. For a few days, everything goes perfectly. You arrive early, take detailed notes, volunteer for projects. Your manager is impressed. "We're glad we hired you." You smile. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe you really did grow out of it. Then, life speeds up. Your inbox fills with emails. Meetings get rescheduled. Deadlines overlap. Your desk slowly disappears beneath sticky notes. Your notebook is full. You just can't remember which page contains what. One afternoon, your manager asks, "Did you send that report?" Your stomach sinks. You completely forgot. Not because you didn't care. Because another task arrived. Then another, until the report simply vanished from your mind. You apologize. Again. Your manager sighs. It's becoming a pattern. You hear those words, and they feel painfully familiar. A pattern. You've heard that your entire life. The problem isn't that you don't work hard. Sometimes, you work harder than everyone else. You stay late. You skip lunch. You take work home. Yet somehow, the simple things keep slipping through the cracks. Then there's your apartment. You genuinely intend to clean it. You walk into the kitchen to wash dishes. On the way, you notice a pile of laundry. You start folding clothes. Halfway through, you remember you left something in the bedroom. You walk upstairs, see an unopened package. Open it. Find a screwdriver. Remember the loose cabinet handle. Go fix it. An hour later, the dishes are still sitting in the sink. The laundry is unfolded. The cabinet isn't fixed. You collapse onto the couch. Exhausted. You were busy the entire time. Yet somehow, almost nothing got finished. Then there's money. Not because you don't earn enough. Because your brain treats time and money almost the same way. One day, you forget to pay a bill. The next, you impulsively buy something you've wanted for months. Not because you needed it. Because in that moment, it felt like the most important thing in the world. Later, you wonder, why did I do that? You don't have an answer. Relationships become complicated too. Your friends joke that you're always late. Classic you. You laugh with them. Inside, you hate it. You left the house on time. You really did. Then you remembered you forgot your wallet. Went back inside. Saw the mail. Opened a letter. Answered a text. Started looking for your keys. Which somehow ended up in the refrigerator. By the time you finally got into your car, you were already 20 minutes behind. Again. The people you love begin misunderstanding you. You never listen. I already told you that. You forgot my birthday. You forgot our anniversary. Every forgotten date, every interrupted conversation, every missed promise feels like another piece of evidence that you're letting people down. You start apologizing constantly. "I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm sorry, I got distracted. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." Eventually, you stop believing your own apologies. Then something else begins happening. You discover hyperfocus. One weekend, you decide to redesign your entire living room. You start moving furniture, then painting, then researching lighting, then assembling shelves. You don't notice the clock. 12 hours disappear. You forget lunch, dinner, even your phone. When you finally stop, it's nearly midnight. The room looks incredible. You feel unstoppable. The next morning, you realize you forgot to buy groceries, again. That's the strange contradiction. Your brain can ignore hunger, ignore sleep, ignore the entire world when something captures its attention. Yet asking it to answer one email can feel like climbing a mountain. You begin questioning yourself. Why can't I control this? Why can I build an entire room in one day, but struggle to make one phone call? The guilt grows heavier. You watch coworkers effortlessly organize their schedules. Friends remember birthdays without reminders. People seem able to switch between tasks without feeling mentally exhausted. You wonder if everyone else received a handbook for adulthood that somehow skipped you. Then, one evening, everything changes. You're scrolling online, half paying attention, until one video catches your eye. The title reads, "Signs of Adult ADHD That Most People Miss." You almost keep scrolling. Then the speaker says something. Do you constantly feel like you're trying harder than everyone else, just to keep up? You stop. For the next 20 minutes, it feels like someone has secretly been reading your diary, losing things, time blindness, hyperfocus, interrupting people, forgotten appointments, mental clutter, the endless guilt, the feeling that you're intelligent, yet somehow always falling behind. By the end of the video, you're staring at the screen, not because you found every answer, but because for the first time in your life, someone has described your experience without calling you lazy, without calling you careless, without telling you to simply try harder. For the first time, you begin wondering, what if you've never been broken? What if you've simply spent your entire life trying to navigate the world with a brain that works differently? Tomorrow, you'll finally go looking for an answer, and that answer will change the way you see your entire life. Level 4. The day everything finally makes sense. You stare at the screen. The video has already ended. But you don't move. One sentence keeps replaying in your mind. Many adults with ADHD spend years believing they're lazy when they're actually living with an undiagnosed condition. Lazy. That word. You've carried it your entire life. Teachers said it. Friends joked about it. Bosses hinted at it. Eventually, you started saying it to yourself. I'm just lazy. I need more discipline. Everyone else can do this. What's wrong with me? Now, for the very first time, you're wondering if you've been asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? Maybe you should have been asking, why has everything always felt harder than it seems for everyone else? The next morning, you schedule an appointment. You almost cancel it 3 times. Not because you're scared of the doctor, because another voice keeps whispering. You're probably making excuses. You're just looking for something to blame. That voice has lived inside your head for years. You almost believe it. Almost. A few weeks later, you're sitting in a waiting room. Your leg won't stop bouncing. You aren't sure whether you're nervous or whether your body simply refuses to be still. A psychologist calls your name. The conversation begins simply. Questions about childhood, school, work, relationships, your habits, your struggles. You answer honestly. You talk about forgetting homework, losing your keys, missing deadlines, interrupting people without meaning to, starting projects you never finished, feeling overwhelmed by simple tasks, working twice as hard just to appear average. The psychologist listens quietly, not judging, not interrupting, just listening. When you finished, they ask one final question. Have you always been like this? You don't even have to think. Yes. As far back as I can remember. The assessment takes time, questionnaires, conversations, examples from your life. You leave feeling uncertain. Part of you hopes there isn't an answer. Another part desperately hopes there is. Days later, you return. The psychologist smiles gently. We've finished reviewing everything. Your heart begins racing. Then they say the words that quietly divide your life into 2 parts. Based on everything we've discussed, you meet the criteria for attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder. Silence. Not because you're shocked, because, somehow, you're relieved. You expected to cry. Instead, you exhale. A breath you've been holding for decades. The psychologist continues. This doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're unintelligent. It doesn't erase your responsibility. It simply helps explain why certain things have always been harder for you. Explain, not excuse, explain. That single difference changes everything. On the drive home, you replay your entire childhood. The homework, the forgotten birthdays, the messy backpack, the unfinished projects, the constant guilt, the feeling that everyone else received instructions for life, except you. You realize none of those moments happened because you didn't care. You cared deeply. Sometimes, too deeply. Your brain simply worked differently. That evening, you call your parents. It's an emotional conversation. I was diagnosed with ADHD. There's a long pause. Then your mom quietly says, I always wondered why you struggled so much. I just didn't know. No anger, no blame, just sadness. For all the years neither of you understood. Over the next few months, you begin learning, not just about ADHD, about yourself. You learn why routines help, why reminders matter, why breaking large tasks into smaller ones works, why exercise clears your mind, why enough sleep changes everything. You also learn something important. No strategy works perfectly. Some days, you still forget things, you still lose your wallet, you still walk into rooms and immediately forget why. You still start 3 tasks before finishing one. The difference is, you no longer respond with, I'm useless. Instead, you ask, what system can help me next time? That shift changes everything. You stop fighting your brain and start working with it. You begin using calendars, timers, checklists, visual reminders, not because you've become weak, because you've become wiser. One afternoon, you catch yourself smiling after forgetting something, not because forgetting is funny, because instead of attacking yourself, you simply solve the problem. That's new. Months ago, one mistake could ruin your entire day. Now, it's just a mistake. You finally understand something. Your biggest enemy was never ADHD. It was the shame, the years of believing you were lazy, careless, broken, when in reality, you were trying to solve a puzzle without knowing what the picture looked like. Receiving a diagnosis didn't magically fix your life. You still have challenges. You still have frustrating days. But now, you understand the rules of the game. And once you understand the rules, you can finally stop blaming yourself for playing a different one. Tomorrow, you'll discover something even more surprising. The very brain that caused you so much frustration may also be responsible for some of your greatest strengths. Level 5. The brain you spent years fighting becomes your greatest strengths. For most of your life, you've measured yourself by what your brain couldn't do. The forgotten appointments, the unfinished projects, the missed deadlines, the constant feeling that you were one step behind everyone else. But one day, someone asks you a different question. What are you good at? You open your mouth to answer, then stop. You honestly don't know. Not because you don't have strengths, because you've spent so many years trying to fix your weaknesses that you never stop to notice them. Over the next few months, you begin paying attention. Not to what goes wrong, to what comes naturally. At work, someone presents a problem the team has been trying to solve for days. Everyone is thinking in straight lines. You aren't. Within minutes, you connect 3 completely unrelated ideas. The room goes quiet. Your manager looks at you. I would have never thought of that. You smile. Neither would have you. You start noticing this happening more often. While other people see one solution, your mind sees 20. Sometimes that's exhausting. Sometimes it's extraordinary. You realize your brain isn't always distracted. Sometimes it's simply exploring possibilities no one else notices. Then there's your curiosity. When something captures your attention, you don't just learn it, you dive into it. Photography, music, history, coding, cooking, astronomy. Within weeks, you've consumed books, documentaries, articles, podcasts, and tutorials. People ask, how do you know so much about this already? You laugh, because they didn't see the 12 straight hours your brain disappeared into learning. For years, you hated hyperfocus. Now, you're learning to aim it. Instead of fighting it, you schedule around it. You protect the hours when your mind naturally locks in. The difference is remarkable. You don't become someone else. You become a better version of yourself. Relationships change too. Instead of apologizing for every interruption, you explain what's happening. Sometimes you say, I'm sorry, I got excited and interrupted you. Then you stop, listen, and let them finish. The people who care about you don't expect perfection. They appreciate honesty. You also begin forgiving yourself. You stop comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. Because you finally understand something. Everyone has struggles. Yours just happened to have a name. One afternoon, you're visiting your old elementary school for a community event. Children are running through the hallways. One little boy can't sit still. He's asking endless questions. His desk is messy. His teacher gently redirects him. Some parents nearby shake their heads. That kid needs to settle down. You watch him for a moment. Then you smile. Because you recognize him. Not by his face, by the way his mind seems to race ahead of everyone else. You quietly hope that someone helps him understand himself years earlier than you did. That evening, you sit at your desk. You open an old notebook from high school. On one page, you find something you wrote years ago. Why can't I just be normal? You stare at the sentence for a long time. Then you close the notebook. If you could answer that younger version of yourself today, you know exactly what you'd say. You were never supposed to be someone else. You weren't failing at being normal. You were learning how to be yourself. You realize something beautiful. ADHD didn't steal your future. It changed the path you had to take to reach it. Yes, there were challenges, missed opportunities, moments of frustration, years of unnecessary guilt. But there was also creativity, curiosity, passion, resilience, the ability to see patterns others miss, the courage to begin again after countless setbacks. Those qualities were always there. They'd simply been hiding behind years of misunderstanding. As the sun sets outside your window, you think about your life. Not with regret, with compassion. You finally stop asking, "Why am I like this?" Instead, you ask, "How can I build a life that works with my brain instead of against it?" That question changes everything. Because happiness was never going to come from pretending your brain worked like everyone else's. It came from understanding it, accepting it, and giving yourself the same patience you've always given everyone else. You close your laptop, stand up, take a deep breath. For the first time in your life, you aren't trying to become a different person. You're simply becoming the person you were always capable of being. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of all. Your brain was never your enemy. It was speaking a different language. The day you finally learned to understand it was the day you finally understood yourself.